speak up. When I hop about the cut, I promise I'm gonna make a scene. Got lights, cameras, action, but
well, it's your girl Marquita Beyond, the host of the Pink Link Podcast, and I'm definitely delighted to be here once again. And I have a lovely guest with me today for creators. His name is Warren, and so he is producing this entire episode today, and I just am grateful. And then I'm definitely delighted for you all to be seeing his work, you know, in full action and what he does, and just to hear his story and get his background. So welcome, Warren.
Thank you,
What's
thank
up?
you, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Yes, most definitely. It's a pleasure to have you here. I thank you for coming on and supporting the Pink Link Podcast.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Definitely a blessing. With each guest, I was telling someone, I was like, each episode gets better and better. I was like, it's just a blessing.
Yeah, I've been noticing the growth. So it's like it's just dope, definitely dope. Like that's why I just want to kind of just reach out and like make comments on your post, because like I see the growth and I see what you're doing.
Thank you. I see yours too.
Thank you.
So let's get into you and your journey. So
Okay.
Are you born and raised in Atlanta, or
No. Me and my wife moved to Atlanta in 2011 from North Carolina. I'm originally from Philly. She's from the Bronx, but we
Wow.
I know. It's just, yeah, we wind up moving to North Carolina at the same time, wind up meeting, and we've been married for 15 years. And
Amazing.
yeah, so now we're down here, and we love it down here.
Amazing. Congratulations on that longevity. 15 years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all need to produce a course. Look, produce a podcast, produce a
We're thinking
course.
about it. We got some things in the works. Yeah.
Yes, like I love that.
Thank you.
So, growing up in Philly, you say, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're right from the Bronx. So, how was that? How was your childhood growing up in Philly and things like that?
It was good. It was good. Like, so my parents were both in the military, so I was kind of a military brat. So we bounced around a little bit. I didn't move to Philly until I was about 8 years old. So like I grew up in California, grew up in Washington, moved around in Germany a little bit. So we kind of just moved around a whole lot. But it was great. I mean, my parents, I wouldn't say I was like sheltered or anything like that, but we had like a kind of like a Cosby type of family or whatever.
Wow.
So it was just like things was cool. Like, I mean, they always looked out for us. My parents been married, so I'm 42. My parents been married for 45 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It's weird to say that.
They still married?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a blessing.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that out, because a lot of times it's what you see that you mimic. You know, you saw your parents married for 40-some years, and now you've been married 15 years.
I'm trying to mimic all the same qualities that they had. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And that just reminds me, yesterday I was I went on live before getting here, and my daughter came to me. It's a different scenario, but she was like, Mom, do you ever get tired of watching stuff like that? And I was like, she don't get it now, but one day she may find herself doing the same thing, because she was like, you just don't watch Netflix. I'm always watching educational things or podcasts. I'm like, you have to put in the hours, baby.
You do.
I said, so that's what I'm doing. I'm putting in the hours. And so just let her, just to see that she's watching, you know, what I'm watching. So, yeah, it's like you was watching your parents, you see that relationship, you see the longevity, and now you're able to mimic those habits into your own family and relationship with your
Absolutely.
wife.
That's the goal.
I love that. Black love.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, you know, I was going to ask you about mentorship and things like that, but I'm pretty sure your father instilled great things in you as a young man.
Yeah. I mean, just you know, when we started off, I didn't really think about it too much, but once we moved to Philly, I started seeing a whole lot of other like young kids that didn't really have both of their parents together.
Right.
And it just seemed normal to me at first, but then it seemed like I was the abnormal one. But like I didn't really take it to heart or anything like that. I just appreciated everything that I got, because I got a lot of great qualities from my mother and my father.
Right.
And it's just like just having them in the house together, the way they treated each other, the way they talked to each other. I try to mimic the best qualities of that, like in my own marriage. So I did get a lot of mentorship from them. It's just like I learned, like, you know, you got to take care of yourself. Like my dad, like, you know, he washes clothes, he sews clothes, like he makes stuff. Like my dad is very domestic. At the same time, he can like fix a car, or he can like sew somebody's dress. Like my dad is just because you're a man doesn't mean that you shouldn't be cooking. My dad cooks for my mom a lot. My dad irons my mom's clothes.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're true partners. Like there is no real role. Like they
like
just
gender and male roles in your home.
Nah.
They can't, and that's why they got 40-some years together, because they was out of the ego.
Yeah.
Like he didn't feel like, you know, she has to do this because he's the man of the house, or she's the woman of the house. So
They both do stuff. My mom goes wash her own car and stuff like that. They just do whatever they do, and then they do stuff for each other at the same time. Yeah.
Build.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome because, I mean, you said you had like the Cosby Family. I was growing up watching the Cosby, like idolizing, like I wish we had that, and you actually had that.
And it wasn't like, I mean, like the money, it wasn't no Cosby money or nothing like that, but it was just like, it's just just showing respect for each other.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Looking out for each other, realizing that being married means that you're a team. And so those are the things that I saw them doing. Now they had their little arguments and stuff like that or whatever, but one of the traits that they had is like nobody outside of the house needed to know anything that was going on. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We're having an issue. We don't take that outside. We don't tell anybody what's going on or whatever. So it's like those are the best qualities that they have. And it's just like you try to emulate as much as you can from the positive things that you got from your parents.
Yes. I love that so much. Mm-hmm. Especially when you didn't have it. So when you hearing it, you like, that's appreciative just to hear that you had it.
Right.
So, I know you said you used to once podcast. So was that something that you wanted to do growing up, or what was your dreams, and how did you get here?
Well, growing up, always had friends that was like rappers, right? And I couldn't rap, couldn't freestyle. They always be sitting in the car. I tried, and it's just I'm so glad that I grew up in an era where we didn't have like phones that had cameras on them, because like it would have been some terrible freestyles out there with me. So I'm just glad that none of that was out there.
Even people with the terrible lyrics now, they still get
somehow.
Like, wow.
But I just realized that wasn't me, but I always did I realized at that point when I had so many creative friends that I wanted to find a way of supporting creators and like helping their platform look better, helping things get a little bit more polished and stuff like that. So I started like getting into like making beats, and I always wanted to have my own studio and engineer. As far as music, like I kind of strayed away from that as much because I wasn't hanging around as many people who were into music. But Atlanta is a beautiful hub for so many different creatives that want to actually like learn like the craft and learn the business and build with each other. It's so many opportunities to network with people like you that I really couldn't see myself living anywhere else. I love supporting the creative economy, and it's just been an easy. Once I decided in 2020 to like start podcasting, because I started off as a podcaster.
What was your podcast name?
Oh, so it was 404 Creators Podcast.
What Creators?
404 Creators Podcast. But we started, and it's just like we started during the pandemic, and we were talking about like movies and TV shows and stuff like that. But if you remember back during that time, a lot of the productions were like, slowing down and stopping because of the pandemic. So a lot of stuff that we talked about on our podcast was kind of drying. We didn't have anything to talk about. And I really didn't have that much of a passion for it anymore because I felt like I wasn't really adding that much more to the podcasting space as far as like the entertainment space.
So was you a co-host?
So it was me and two other coworkers that we worked together. We decided going to just start the podcast.
Okay.
But like I said, my heart wasn't really in it as much anymore because I didn't feel like I was adding that much to the conversation. But I did start to notice that we started off with one camera. Now we got two. Now we're getting better microphones. And it's like we started looking at our podcast, or at least in my mind, I started saying, if I don't love being on camera anymore, we're still going to amp up our production and make it look better and make it sound better so that we can use that as a proof of concept that we can produce for other people. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it kind of started. I started looking for other clients. Like, look at our podcast. Like, you may not like the podcast, but look how good it looks, though.
Right.
Look how good it sounds. Like, pay attention to that aspect of it. And it's like, then I started like snowballing and start slowly picking up clients. And then I started working with other creatives and other people who wanted to learn podcasting. And I started, I picked up somebody else, Mo. She's a great producer, and she works with our team a whole lot. Then I started working with another guy named AC, and they produce. And then my wife, she's on the board today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, wife.
My wife, Cassandra.
Shout out to wife Cassandra.
Yeah, she's on the boards right now. So it's like she's always been part of the team. Like, we started a company together, but it's like now she's really boots on the ground and has like a she's fully on producing shows now.
I was putting in work, getting it on. Getting it together around here, you all.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, like I said, like it's weird for me being back on this side of the camera, but now I feel like I have more to talk about as far as like production and some of the things that you go through and kind of educating people on how to build businesses like we built this business.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I still feel like, though you out of it, in the words of David Shans, everybody should have a podcast.
You are, yeah, and David, and I'm glad you mentioned him because I'm like, if you're a podcaster and you live in Atlanta and you don't know who David Shans is, it's crazy.
You're on a rock, honey.
Yeah.
Because everybody should have a podcast. You don't care, you got to have something, a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
But everyone does have something to say. And so you just got to find what it is you have to say so that you can see why you need a podcast, in the words of David Shans.
And so I kind of go back and forth on everybody needs a podcast. Like, I feel like for the business, for art, because we are podcast producers. So if everybody had a podcast, there would be more people that we could actually produce for, and we could, and the business will be better. But at the same time, I think people really need to have a purpose on their podcast.
Yes.
And I think people need to know what audience they're servicing and what they're actually doing for their audience.
I'm glad you're saying that because, y'all, it's not easy.
No.
I'm going on 100 episodes and I'm still doing it. And for the most part, honey, I'm spending the money to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Then getting the money in this season, but we're shifting that. It has shifted. I got a light bulb. But don't think, just write off anything that you do. I don't care what it is. It usually takes you about 2 to 3 years to see revenue, to get money. And then what would keep you going is the purpose. My purpose, the lady who was doing my makeup, my daughter, she's my new Spanish daughter. Shout out to her. But I was just telling her, I was like, it's the purpose for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have the purpose, you're not going to stay committed. You're not going to keep doing it. I had a cleaning service that was bringing in money at one point, but I left that because even when I was doing that, I knew I had a voice and had so much to say that I couldn't focus on just like me standing there and not doing what I'm doing in this season of my life and just being so fulfilled, just speaking with others who are doing what they're doing and their purpose. Mm-hmm. And that's why I do this podcast, so that you can see and be inspired to live out your purpose.
Absolutely.
So it got to be purpose in it, and you got to know your why. Mm-hmm. Glad you said that.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yes, because, baby, you're going to have some tears, but, hey, you're going to get on the other side.
Yeah.
So just what was your mindset when you had to start pivoting, out of, were you all making money from your podcast at the time?
Absolutely not. And I knew we would probably never be able to monetize our podcast.
And why you say that? Go into that. Because I'm wondering how.
So first of all, I don't think that we did enough to try to find the right angle. I think we were still trying to figure out like our groove. And like I said, a lot of it was it was just a wrong time for us to actually have a profitable podcast. Because if you're sitting around talking about Marvel movies and TV shows, right? Or just talking about...
that was the podcast overall.
Yeah. We would, it's like entertainment geek news and stuff like that. We were all people that just watched the Avengers and Captain America and all them other movies, all the superhero movies. Yeah, and so we were just sitting around talking about that. But how were we servicing our audience? How were we bringing anything different to that space? I don't think that we were the funniest podcasts out there. I don't think that we were the most educational podcasts in that space, talking about those type of movies and TV shows. And I just don't think that we were going to spend the right time mastering that aspect of speaking on those subjects. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't as passionate anymore. But I feel like we can come back because we don't have the podcast anymore. But then when I started to pivot, I wanted to talk to other creatives in the space, other camera operators, other producers, other photographers, other people. And it's like, I can talk about production all day long. I love talking about it. Anybody who asks me about a camera, I'm like, yeah, people DM me every single day asking me about production. What cameras are you using? What microphones are you using? Like, people ask me all day, and now they have to get me off the phone. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do so many...
It's something it's purposeful for you.
So I can do a podcast on this, but then how do I monetize something like that? Well, I speak about the products that we use. I speak about the services that we use to edit. And so now I feel like I can monetize this type of podcast because we're educating people on how to produce, which provides value for people. But then brands are also looking at us like, okay, you can actually sway your audience to talk about our products. They'll start purchasing our products because of the recommendations that you're making. So that's one way. You may not make the money from like the streaming, like YouTube, it takes forever to actually
Right, but you
monetize on
can
YouTube.
get from your
Yeah, you can
sponsorships.
bring on people, you can bring on sponsorships. Like we're basically sponsoring this podcast.
Right.
That's less money that you would have
That's
to
what I
pay.
was gonna say. That's what I do with a lot of relationships,
Yeah.
you know, and you start where you are to
Yeah.
start monetizing your podcast.
Yeah. And then it's like, so even with our production, at the quality that we may produce for it, there's no guarantee that just because your podcast looks and sounds professional that people are going to tap in, but you have a higher opportunity, you have a higher chance to actually do that. Now, with all the lights and all the cameras and all the microphones, what are you actually saying? Like, what's your excuse for your podcast not being successful? And it's probably because your audience doesn't feel like you're actually servicing them properly. And that's what you always have to keep in mind. Who are you actually talking to? Who's on the other side of the camera? What do they need from you? And are you actually listening when they say, oh, like when your numbers go up when you bring on a photographer? Well, maybe your audience wants to hear from photographers and other creatives. Maybe when you bring on a makeup artist, then the numbers go up. So that's what your audience probably wants from you because you're more passionate about speaking about that subject. And so you just have to kind of just find your niche. It takes a while, but with 100 episodes, you're already light years ahead of so many other people, though, because of the consistency.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and
your
know what?
purpose.
Exactly. And I would credit consistency and that mindset shift once again to the good brother, David Shantz. I hate to keep bringing him up, but because I feel like I have done things and I wasn't as consistent.
Mhm.
And then not just to him, but first and foremost to God, and tapping into a different level of what I know God has for me and my purpose, and then reading and what was one of the books I read? I think it was How to Make My Bed. And just start that discipline and getting up, making up my bed, doing something small to do other things and be more disciplined. And another thing I want to say was Will Smith, when you can control what you put in your mouth, you can control what you do in your life. And so just by me transitioning from at one point, eating meats and things like that and, wasn't as disciplined with my eating lifestyle and then just transitioning to being more vegan and plant-based and being able to do fast or stay away from things I know I no longer needed for its that also helped develop the consistency too in my life to be able to be consistent in the podcast. And that's why I be trying to tell people like it all goes together, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, it does.
You can't do one and not do the other one. So whatever, you don't have to be vegan, but if you just become more conscious and more disciplined and say, well, I'm not going to eat cake for a week, that's you forming discipline and being more consistent with yourself and being intentional about it. And
you start seeing results and just that aspect or that thing, then you start carrying those over into other things because you see that it works over here. And you see the effect that it has over here. You can start carrying those over to everything else.
You're preaching.
Yeah.
We need to bring out the office, right?
I mean, it's like even with production, it's just like my wife would tell you, I'm not super organized. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not that disciplined in a lot of other aspects of my life. But when she looks in those trunks where we keep all our gear, everything has a place, everything's lined up properly, everything's neat, everything goes in the same exact place as it did last time. And I train people to set up and run the cables the same exact way. That discipline is slowly seeping into other things. Now, it's going to take a while for me to say, I'm going to hang, now I start to hang up my clothes and stuff like that because I enjoy the organization that I have. And I see that it's helping because I've never lost any piece of gear. I've never left anything behind because when we're packing everything up, it goes in the same exact spot every single time. And slowly but surely it's carrying over where I'm a little bit more neater, like I wash my car a little bit more consistent. I'm just more conscious of things that they can have a positive effect on my life. Yeah.
That's a good highlight because you like, okay, if I can do it in this area, I can do it more here now.
Exactly.
Because I found myself doing it too more because I'm not a big folder, like, for years, like, if I was in a relationship, I used to say it, they folded my clothes, you know? So just being in a place now to where, I do that more because I know it's discipline, to do it.
Yeah.
Even my stepdad used to do my laundry.
Right.
So, bear with me, y'all, but we finna get to the next question here. My handwriting today was a little scrappy. So, I know your wife is on the team. So, how do you all balance working together, and the work life and then relationship life outside of working together?
That's an amazing question. She should have been probably up here too, because
right?
like I said, she's on the boards right now. She helped like set up, like we set up this together. Like we did, like this is our first one of our first productions where it was just me and her, no other members of our team, and we just kind of just set everything up together. We didn't start off like that. It was mostly me and just two other producers that I work with closely. But it's like she started showing interest in it, and it was just amazing just seeing how fast like she took to it and started taking off. And it's like now she's actually just basically just trying to find a role. Like right now she's actually running the boards. It's her first time running the boards by herself.
Wow.
And so she's just trying to find her footing. She may not stay there. She may be like a podcast consultant, like talking to other people who want to start their podcast. Like I'll physically set up the cameras and actually run the boards and everything like that with the rest of the members of our team. But maybe she may give the podcast host like tips on, okay, you should ask these type of questions, or you should bring this type of guest on there. So it's so many different roles. You don't necessarily have to be the actual producer who sets up the cameras and runs the boards. You can actually be a podcast consultant. You can actually, you can be a booking agent for podcasters. You can be a tour manager for podcasters.
It's
like
so many avenues. I haven't even thought about
different
now. So you need to start the podcast.
I know. But it's like
so many realms to it.
But it's like as far as the work-life balance, because like we're still trying to figure that out, because you don't want to, because it is our business, right? And so we have to talk about it, but how do you talk about the business and learn how to shut it off at a certain point? You know what I'm saying? So now, because you got the romance over here, right, and then you got
try to build this thing over here, and it's like, oh, I got this idea.
Yeah, but it's not the time that. So it's like you have to kind of figure that out.
On vacation, babe.
Yeah, I know, and we just went on a vacation. We just came back from Puerto Rico, and it's just like I had to learn how to shut my brain off and not worry about anything going on back there. And so, just like with anything else, you have to learn how to shut that off. And the short answer is we're still trying to figure that out.
Right.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, because I know me and my myself with my creativity. And when you're a creative, y'all are creatives. So the creative be creative.
Yeah. And it's something like, especially with me, I'm passionate about it. I talk about it all the time. The only reason why I started social media was like really to like start putting images out and like, just talk about the things I'm passionate about. Well, actually it started off with a long time ago. We had 2 episodes of the podcast where we were talking about like electric skateboard riders. Oh, wow. So we rode skateboards that go like 24 miles an hour. And it's like we had a whole group. It was almost like a motorcycle club.
Oh, wow.
We would just ride through the city and stuff like that. So we had a couple episodes doing that. But that's why I started the podcast, was to talk about, to highlight, the people that we ride with. Mm-hmm. But then I didn't want to get pigeonholed and kind of locked into that. So that's when we kind of opened it up to talk about like geek news and stuff like that. Okay. But it's like now, like this is going to be the 3rd iteration when we do start the podcast, but it's going to be about all the stuff that you asked, like as far as like, how do you balance having a business with, your family and your lifestyle, and then like, some of the things and some of the issues that we run into with clients, educating people on the right gear to buy. So it's like that'd be the 3rd iteration of the 4 for Creators podcast.
Okay, I'm loving it.
Thank you.
It, most definitely. So, do you all manifest things into your life? Are you a manifester? And if so, what have you manifested?
That's a good question. I mean, I probably don't use that term very much at all. But I think I think what we do kind of still has the same effects. Like we talk about the things that we want, and you get to a point where you stop talking about it as much and say, okay, what steps can I put in place in order to achieve the goal that I'm working on? So I guess it's the same thing, but it starts off with saying, what do I want? Like I have a big giant whiteboard that I have in my in like my man cave, and I just write stuff that I want on there. So I guess that's the same thing. Right. The only thing that I have left on there is that, and that may come off, but I have written on there at the very top, I want my own studio.
Wow.
And
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Have you thought about a studio, or you just want to continue to be mobile?
Me and my wife talked about it. We talk about it a lot, because so at this point right now, I feel like being mobile is probably the best thing to do, and we need to stay mobile, because if we were in the studio,
Overhead.
it's a lot of overhead. And so we had a studio before. We had a studio for about 6 months. It was on the south side. And it was fine, but it was a very small space, and we couldn't like change the set around to adjust for different shows.
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed that a lot of times, a lot of the podcast hosts, once they get to a certain level, they don't want anybody else to be on their set. It's not an egotistical thing. It's just, it should be an exclusive.
They set to look like they set.
Yeah, like
to keep it the brand.
Exactly. You're exactly right. They want to keep it on brand. Some of the beginning podcasters, maybe not so much. They'll just
like me. I'd be like,
but your options are opening up a whole lot. Even in this beautiful space that we're in, all we had to do was just tilt the cameras like 90 degrees, and we got a whole nother set. But in the space that I was in, we didn't have that. You got that one set. We might be able to change the colors a little bit, or add a little bit more to it, or put some covers over the couches so it looks like a different color, but we can only do so much. And we started having clients like Cocktails. They're an amazing podcast. We started producing for B. Simone. We started producing for Megan James. And they all have beautiful spaces where they would rather record in, but they didn't have the team yet. So we became part of their production team. And we'll just pull up and go wherever you want to go. So it's a different type of skill set, because not to knock anybody who works out of a studio, but once everything is set up, all you have to do is just open the door and sit down and kind of just get to it.
Mm-hmm.
With us, we're actually building a studio every single time we step out.
Right.
And so I want to stay sharp and be able to develop that and just keep that skill, because even the people that we're training under us, they're doing something that a lot of other people can't do. Build a studio every time you shoot.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you can actually sell this business so that others can go produce for podcasters. Like
You must be looking at my notes, because and that's another thing. And I guess that goes back to like having that balance, because now that we built up the business to a certain extent, me and my wife, because we have people trained, we can pull up on set and we could be more like of assistance to our crew. What do y'all need? We can help y'all set up. All right, we about to go take off, go grab something to eat from the belt line, and then we'll come back and check on y'all later on. They have an opportunity to sit here and make money watching and producing podcasts that they love. Me and my wife can go kick it, still make some money while we're, relaxing, and then come back. So it's like we're building a team where our team is going to get so good that we don't have to be around. It's going to get to a point where people don't even know that we own the business. They never even seen us on set before, because our crew
have so many people like in different places.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
so many ways that you can market it, because you can get a percentage from them using your stuff, or you can, just help them to brand their stuff and charge.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always like,
yeah, and that's where you need to be. Like, and that's important. And it's just like that, and that's why networking is so important, because you get so many different ideas from people.
whew, I was just telling her that this morning.
Like
you gotta
just
network.
You have to, and just a couple. So I would attribute a large amount of the success that we have in this business right now to a podcaster named Mandy B.
Mandy B.
Yes. She is amazing. So she has 2 different podcasts. She has Horrible Decisions with her partner
Horrible?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Horrible
I saw
Decisions.
them at the podcast festival by Charlamagne.
She's somebody to really pay attention to.
I need to really get into her.
She's somebody to really pay attention to, because not only is she an entertaining podcaster, she has 2 podcasts, Horrible Decisions and See the Thing Is.
Wow.
And I didn't know about her at all, unfortunately, until she joined Joe Budden's podcast network. So she was like one of the first podcasters on there. It was Mandy, it was Bridget Kelly, and it was another podcaster, Olivia Dope. They were on a podcast together, and I was interested in their podcast because it was on Joe Budden's network. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know if he can take his successful podcast and actually pivot that into a growing network. And he had about 4 or 5 podcasts on there. A lot of them all of them left, so it's just Joe Budden's network now. But I became a fan of her because of her takes on certain things, because she was on his network, and then she wound up leaving and was able to bring all of her IP over to her own projects, and she got $1 million deals and stuff like that. But I reached out to her because she has a lot of information on how podcasters can make money.
Yes, she was there and giving out some gems.
She does it all the time. So I reached out to her, And then telling her, I really appreciate you, giving that information. I really appreciate you. You don't get enough credit for how much you try to educate podcasters. She followed me, started liking some of my content. And because we were still producing for a lot of people out here. No huge names, but very great podcasters in the local area. But
But you are working with B. Simone.
Yeah, we are. But that came from her though. Like that came from her because she saw what we were doing in Atlanta and she saw the quality that we can provide. So she wound up telling people, and that's how we got the B. Simone job.
Hear that?
DMs. I DM'd her.
It goes down in the DM.
It does. It does. I mean, and it's just, and that's how it really started. So we wound up just getting more and more clients. I'm telling you, a lot of our business came from the circle that she let us into because she saw the quality. And then, we developed like a personal business relationship. And it's just like, anytime somebody if somebody talks to her about shooting a podcast in Atlanta, she points them to us.
That's a blessing. Another thing, it's not what you know, it's what you know, and it's also who you know.
Absolutely.
Because you're podcasting.
Absolutely.
So you do want to be informed and have some knowledge, but it is as well in knowing those things, it's also who you're connected to and who you know and building those relationships.
Yeah, because you can do the thing and be good at it, but if nobody knows it, it doesn't matter. And you have to make sure that, so I would say, and I don't know if everybody looks at it like this, but I say we are in a service industry. Yes. As a podcast production team, we are in a service industry. Yes. And so we want to make sure that people can see what we can do for them. Of course, us picking up them as a client, that gives us money. And that benefits us. But we need to put it in their head. What we can do can benefit you.
It's a service.
Yeah, we are providing a service for you.
Exactly. And that's what I've gotten to with the Pink Link. I'm a service. I was looking at Hannah, she's one of the big podcasters, but she was like, podcasting is a service.
Yeah.
Like, people are charging $100,000 for people to go on podcasts and paying $100,000. So I got to continue to elevate and step up my game for the Pink Link because I want to be a service, and I want to definitely be able to give someone something in servicing them with the Pink Link podcast as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, because when you think about it, because at first I was kind of back and forth about people charging people to be on their podcast.
Me too.
But when you think about it, you can do it. So, because it's kind of like when we started off. When we started off as a business, my first 2 clients were free. Like I wasn't charging them anything, and it's just because my very first client was Perception Vibes podcast. It was 2 sisters. They had a R&B podcast, and I didn't charge them anything. But our deal was because one of them was a music producer, so she made 5 beats for me that I can use. Whatever I want to do for like intros and outros and stuff like that. Yeah. So she did all the beats for me. She gave me 5 different beats. And then the other one actually designed our logo, our 4 Creators logo.
Wow.
And so in exchange for that, I would do their whole season. So I did about 5 episodes for them. And before that, their quality wasn't great.
Right.
Wasn't great. You can tell they needed some help. And I also needed some practice with meeting deadlines and actually being able to provide a great service for a client on a deadline properly. And just, so it was practice for me in order to learn how to produce for other people.
Right.
Under certain scrutiny and stuff like that. And I learned a lot. I learned what to do, what not to do, what you actually need in order to produce a successful podcast. And so that's kind of how it started. And then you get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm not charging anything. Let me see if I can get somebody to pay me $60 an hour. And then, okay, they're paying $60, but now I'm buying, because this is all I do. I love podcast production. Whenever I get some money, what do I buy? More cameras, more microphones, because I love doing this. So it's like, since I'm doing that and the service is getting better and the image quality is getting better and all I'm doing is investing back into the business, I can afford to charge a little bit more because when I was charging $60, it looked like this. Now I can charge a little bit more, but I can justify it though.
Exactly.
Because it looks, it just looks a certain type of way.
I have no problem with your price. When you told me, I was like,
yeah.
I was like,
Right.
okay, I see why.
But the same thing can be said for you though. When you, because charging that amount is like, if you can afford to pay it, you can. If you can't, you can't. Right. But at least you know that there's value there. But even with yours, when you get to a point where you could say to yourself, I can afford, it makes sense for me to charge this much because I'm providing a value for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's quantifiable. Like you can look at the way your business was before you were on my
I
podcast.
was on Zoom.
Yeah, and what happens after? What happens to your business after you make an appearance on my show? If you can say
Exactly.
this is what happened to them and this is what can happen to you,
Yes.
you can charge what you want with a clear conscience because you know you're providing a valuable service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're able to market yourself in a better, light, in a
Yeah.
better way. And when people see that you're investing in you, they don't mind investing in you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people need to get that.
Yeah. Yes.
So it takes money to make money.
It does. It absolutely
Don't
does.
be afraid.
Yeah.
So, what's like a book or anything you've read or you're reading that you want to share to help your growth along your journey?
So honestly, there's a couple of things that I have for motivation. Like I'm wearing like the marathon shirt is because like Nipsey, like he really inspired a lot of stuff that we got going on and a lot of things that we implemented.
Yes.
And it's just, I listen to I listen to Victory Lab like at least weekly.
You, me.
And it's because that's a motivational book for me.
Yes.
And a lot of the stuff that he's talking about is not just him personally getting on. Like the song Loaded Bases, like he wants to make sure that he gets a team on. He wants people around him to look like geniuses. He doesn't want anybody else. He didn't want anybody else to like look like they're the weak link. So my wife, I want her to be at the pinnacle of what she wants to do inside the business. My other team members, Mo and AC, I want them to be the leaders. Like a lot of times, like in the most recent productions that we've been doing, I've been just not even showing up. I want the clients to know them, to know that they got this, that they don't need me around. They're not my assistants. They don't work for us. They're independent contractors. Of course, I consider them part of 404 Creators, but they're independent contractors that know their job. They have been trained properly. They know what they're doing. Don't look to me anymore because I'm trying to work on the business and not in the business as much.
Gotta let them fly.
Yeah, gotta let them fly. And they've been doing amazing. I love the work that they're doing. And it's the same way, with Cassandra, with my wife right now. It's like she's working in the business and she knows it. And now she can kind of have a bird's eye view and be able to oversee certain things. Like she knows what the production team is supposed to be doing. She knows the analytics of stuff. Like she can analyze the business from a different perspective now. So I probably went off in a completely different tangent, but
you did.
but as far as like as far as motivation, and what I read, I haven't read any books specifically. Well, there's a book about Nipsey. I forgot what the name of the author's name, but there's a book about Nipsey. Like just listening to his journey and his life story and making sure you're building the proper team. That book motivated me a whole lot, and it's a book that Nipsey recommended called "Contagious" by Joel Berger. I want to say Joel Berger.
I don't think I read it.
It's an orange
yet.
book. Yeah. Love it.
I may have read some of it, but not all of it.
Yeah, and it's just about things that you do that you can do to help you go viral. That get it in your client's mind or the people that you want to reach. How can you reach them and actually have like a thought kind of inception into their brain? And it's just about psychology of like marketing and stuff like that. So I read those books and those helped. But for the most part, I study other podcasts. Like going back to David Shands, if you don't know who that is, you're not really serious yet. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to remember to drop David info in the description box because, I mean, that's how the Pink Link got started. Like I said, I did get before I even knew about a podcast. It was called the Reviving Door, and I just knew I wanted to go out and help people and also be helped because I had left the cleaning business and I was like, really didn't know how to run a business and didn't have no one to, well, I had a coach, but, I knew I just needed more advice from within the community. And so once COVID hit, I kind of like stopped too, slacked up because it's like, who can you interview and doing, COVID. So then just getting into his community during that time, and then he was saying something about a podcast challenge, and then I got in it to support him because what he was doing in the community. And so arose the Pink Link.
Yeah. And it's crazy, like not to stay on him too much or whatever, but I think he has a great model for his podcast. He brings people on that have businesses that he's genuinely curious about.
Yeah.
I don't know how much prep time he uses to for his podcast, but when you look at him, he's asking questions he really wants to know. And so he's getting these people on his podcast to teach him how to start a business so he can make even more money. But he's also asking on the behalf of the audience. And that's why I watched it, because I'm like, damn, I could make some money, and he's asking the questions I would ask.
Yes, and then I have to say this. We're going to get off of you, David. 'Cause I have to tag David in it.
Yeah.
But with my voice and things like that, and sometimes, you know, people growing up, they be like, you dance. But I love his way of asking questions that people thought were dumb questions, because that could be me sometimes.
Yeah.
People like, did you just ask that? And he made me feel comfortable in just really being able to know that I can do this and ask the dumb questions, which I've always done, because they be like, did you? Yeah, ask because I want to know.
But everybody sitting there laughing at you for asking that question wants to know the same thing.
Exactly, but afraid.
They're just afraid.
And so, and just seeing him being vulnerable on his podcast helped me to know that, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
Because I started it before I even knew what it was, and now this is alignment for me to know I can start back, you know.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't getting the challenge to actually start it, but God worked that thing out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so you all, we've brought on a new thing. I hope it lasts. So, this is going to be the genie in a bottle, baby.
Okay.
So, like, if you had one wish, and that's the genie, or however, you know, a prayer, you would say that you would like to share. You don't have to share, because the last gift's like, what if I want to say? No, just tell us what you would like to tell us and share that you would like to see happen within the next year of your life or something.
Within the next year, I want to see the business grow, and I don't want it to be like a cliche answer or anything like that, but I do. So the name of our production company is called 404 Creators, 404 Creators, and 404 is one of the area codes for Atlanta, of course. And, you know, if you don't live in the Atlanta area, you may not know that, but 404 is one of the area codes for Atlanta. But so that's part of the name. But we also want to work with 404 creators in this area. Yeah. You know, so that's really what it is. I want to be able to build opportunities for people. The two people that I have on my team, Mo and AC, Mo, she went to film school, but she told me a couple of times, like, the stuff that she learned at film school, you know, she just didn't learn enough. Because, like, when I'm teaching about the ISO and the f-stop and the cameras and all these different things, she didn't learn that in film school. So it's almost like starting over brand new. But in, like, her working with 404 Creators gave her an opportunity to make money in the entertainment industry. And so I'm actually paying young Black people to actually make money in this industry.
Wow.
And so kind of showing people a way, like, you don't have to have a 9 to 5. Like, I don't even consider them working for us. They work with us.
They like contractors.
Yeah, they're independent contractors, and we've been fortunate enough to provide a lot of opportunities where they can actually make, like, really good money. But I want to expand that and actually do a whole lot more of that. Like, my wife, like, she's actually boots on the ground, and she's actually taking a more physical, more physical presence in the business, and that's all I want to see. You know, 90% of our clients are Black women. Wow. And so, and I just feel so fortunate that that's how we are all, that we're set up, because the Black women that we're working with, like, I'll say Cocktails, for example. Cocktails has an amazing podcast. I want to say they've been out for 3 or 4 years. I want to say we've been working with them for almost a year, or actually just a little over a year, but they're currently on tour.
That's a blessing.
They're on tour, and that's something I never even thought about.
Like that.
And I'm telling you, please watch Cocktails podcast. They are amazing. It's I know they describe it different, but basically it's a sex positive podcast. They talk about dating. They talk about just relationship issues. They talk about a whole bunch of different subjects. But a lot of the conversations surrounded about sex and being open with your partner and sex positivity and stuff like that.
That's great.
And they are some of the funniest people I've ever met, some of the sweetest people we have ever met. But it's like, we're seeing them at the toppest level of podcasts. And not only are they making money on their podcast on YouTube and the audio, but they're also making money by selling out shows. Like, they just had 2 sold out shows in City Winery back in February.
Wow.
Sold out shows.
Cocktails?
Yeah.
Like, congratulations.
They've been as far as Canada. They're literally traveling the whole country.
Nationwide.
Yeah. And making money. And the same thing with Know For Sure. Know For Sure just opened up. They're starting to do live shows. We was a part of that, the first one that they did in Atlanta. And just seeing Black women at the level that they're at, I just want to continue to keep working with them because my wife is seeing that. You know, our audience is seeing that. One of our producers, she's a Black woman too, so she gets to see all of this stuff.
Being exposed.
Because it's there, and then it's like on top of that, we're seeing other Black women. Like we met, there's a tour manager named Addie, and she works with a lot of the big podcasters when they're on a tour. So she's basically like a tour manager. And she's a young Black woman doing that. Did you know you can make money being a podcast tour manager?
Like, it's like a record deal now.
Yeah.
Like, once you blow up, like, you take a tour and you got to have people in places for wardrobe, makeup, stylists, all of that. And
same thing with like one of our other clients, Megan James. Like, she goes viral on the Shade Room all the time, all over the place. Like, you know, her a lot of her episodes are like 10K views, 100K views. Like, she has a lot of crazy guests on there. But like she's independent, completely independent. She's funding everything herself, and she gets money on the back end and stuff like that. But she's been on different shows like Love and Hip Hop, Basketball Wives. She's been on a lot of different reality shows, Bad Girls Club. But she just bouncing around, and now she goes from the reality shows to pivot into being a podcast host, and she's got a lot of things in the works. And it's like another Black woman at the highest level of this field, and we get an opportunity to work with them.
I'm just like so inspired and manifesting in my head and congratulating them, like standing their moment, because I'm happy for them and where they are.
Yeah, but it's possible. If you can see it, you can be it.
That's what I'm saying. And it lets me know that it's possible for me when it's time for me.
And absolutely,
you know,
is.
And that doesn't make, you know, like, that's what people get it mixed up. Like, when it's your time to do, if it's in the wheel cards for you to be that successful as well, you're gonna be.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to know it, and I know I am.
Yeah, and that's another thing about Atlanta. Atlanta is so amazing that one person getting an opportunity doesn't take that opportunity away from you. There's so, like, I think this is just great.
Said, like, everything I said this morning to my man, she was like, "You're my new mom. You're gonna be my mentor. I'm your Spanish daughter." Yes, because I was like, somebody else winning doesn't take away from you winning.
No, there's a lot of other people who actually produce podcasts. And we can't produce for everybody in Atlanta. As much as we would like to, we just can't do it.
Yes.
So we have a stable of people that we work with. We don't have anybody under contract or anything like that. People are free to do what they want to do. But when we make pivots and we make shifts and the business changes or the culture changes a little bit, our clients shift and move with us, and because they know we have their best interests at heart. We know, like, they know that we're going to produce the show at the highest quality possible, and we're always working to make things better for them. And so it's amazing, and that allows us to have more opportunities because they know we genuinely love what we do, and we just want to have the best for their shows.
Yes, most definitely. Y'all definitely got to check them out. Because when I seen the work, I was like, this is nice. Look, usually if y'all see me doing majority of the podcast, unless it's a panel or event and things like that, I don't be having my makeup done. But I was like, I got to get my makeup done. I was like, I'm about to get makeup done for y'all cameras.
Yeah, they're pretty clear. So, yeah.
But I wanted to go back to the network thing. Is that like being signed? Because I had applied for like maybe 2 networks trying to get on a network and things like that. And is that like them signing you like?
Yeah, so it really depends. Like, this is because you kind of attributed podcasting to like music and a record label. And that's really what it is right now. Like, a lot of people I've heard say podcasting now is like hip hop in like the 80s. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what deals to sign. You don't know where the money's at. You don't know how to monetize from your talents and stuff like that. You're still trying to figure out like how to go on tour. Like, but there are blueprints out here. If you're in this field, and I just advise people to not just say, you know, you Saturday night, you and your friends get drunk and y'all sitting around talking and, oh, we should start a podcast. Just hold on. Why are you doing this? How are you trying to service your audience? Because y'all think y'all funny, but I don't care. I don't care about y'all conversations. I don't care about y'all relationships unless you're doing something to educate us, to teach us something. If you're the funniest person in the room or the funniest person at work, you still have to talk about relevant topics. Think about Joe Budden. Everybody knows who Joe Budden is, but is he sitting there talking about himself the whole time? No, he's talking about popular
what they did
people.
last night. Every time, because that'll get old.
It'll get old.
Something that, you know, there's going to be something that they can use.
Even him as a personality that's been out for a long time, people still need to hear something relevant. People need to, like he can go off on a tangent about some certain things or whatever, but for the most part, he's talking about relevant topics. He's talking about things that people care about. You know, he's educating people to a certain extent, or at least entertaining them. So it's just like you just kind of have to learn why you're actually starting a podcast, and like goes back to like having a purpose for things.
Because I consider like doing maybe like a podcast topic, but I was telling someone the flow I go with is who that person is and getting into them and then just going from there. But maybe I can start doing like a hot topic moment, but I don't like to get into the gossip and drama side of things because I'm big on energy. You know what I'm
and if you're not naturally, so that's basically what Megan James' podcast is. Some people may call it, you know, she's been called certain thing like messy or stuff like that or whatever.
Yeah, but
or it's like the tabloid type of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you really pay attention to how she's doing it, she's not being mean, she's not being messy. She's just
giving the news.
Yeah, she's just giving the news, and she's speaking naturally about it. And that's why so many people keep coming on her podcast, because she's actually great at what she does. But if that's not how you naturally are,
right,
it's gonna come across as fake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what's happening
for you.
That was like, you need to do something to get people to watch. Like, do something, you know, that's not me. I'm like, I'm not finna do nothing that's outside of who I am.
Yeah.
When God see fit to bless this podcast, when he get ready, that's when it's gonna pop out. But I'm not finna do nothing that I wouldn't normally do because it's not me.
Yeah.
I'm authentically me.
Yeah.
I am who I am. This is what you're gonna get. But share it, y'all. Like, hey, watch, support. And so we're gonna get ready to wrap it up, you all. So Warren, if you would want to say something to the people today so that they can just start living out their purpose and creating a life that they desire, what would you say to them?
It's another good question. Another great question. It's hard for me to give advice. They're like just kind of just general advice, but I'll do my best to say, you know, what you're doing right now, you hitting over 100 episodes, that's consistency. Like, and it comes, like, consistency is one of the biggest ways of like just making sure like you push through everybody else. Like, you're already beating so many other people just by showing up and being consistent. Yeah. And so with that consistency, you have to start looking at like what works for you and start leaning into like more of your strengths and try to figure out, you know, what you need to do. You reaching out and networking to a lot of other people, that's what I'm doing right now. Like, this is my first like official like real podcast interview, like as a guest.
You feel honored.
Thank you. And it's really because like I want to start. One of the reasons why I stopped my podcast is because I felt like I was super articulate, you know, off camera. So as the cameras come on, I'm just like, I'm just fumbling over my words. I'm speaking too fast. I'm not very clear on.
I felt that way too.
Yeah, but it comes with practice though. If you like, I'm slowing myself down right because I'm more conscious of it that I need to slow down and be, you know, just kind of just slow down and actually just pace myself a little bit. So this is practice for me. So I appreciate you inviting me on the podcast.
Thank you.
Because this is helping me be as articulate as I want to be. And because I've always envied people who are just great at just naturally great speakers. I've always envied people who are just great at speaking. And so now that I have a subject matter like production that I'm more passionate about and I can speak, you know, as somewhat of an authority on the matter, now that I feel like I can speak like that, now I feel like I can start the podcast up. So you're helping me on my journey to get back to podcasting. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I want you all to definitely listen to what he just said, because, hey, that's what I want to be for people. Like, let me at least be your first podcast to get to your next level in podcasting, because you have to start somewhere.
Right.
So why not start with the pink link and come have your purposeful, powerful, innovative next level conversation?
Absolutely. Right? And the energy is great. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So it's just definitely been a delight to have you here and your wife assisting you. And also we have a guest. So thank you for coming by and watching, supporting the pink link. I want to say do you mind saying your name? Lazarus? Huh? Lazarus Reed. Yes, so thank you for definitely coming out. I thought I said the first name wrong again, you all, but hey, I was trying to make sure I got it right. And what else I was gonna say? Oh, I gotta tell y'all, just like he was saying, they going on tour. The Pink Link Podcast has the fashion show coming up in October So definitely, I want you all to make sure you check in with that, check it out. It's on Eventbrite. It is on my Instagram page, which will be dropped in the description box. The link tree will be there, so you'll be able to go check out the Pink Link Fashion Show on ways you can, be a part of that, sponsor and things like that. And so once again, shout out, salute to Warren for coming on, sharing all his expertise behind producing podcasts and the big names that he's working with, and just as he continue to grow, and him and his wife, his family, and things like that, and their businesses and what they're doing, support, because his information will be dropped in the description box below as well.
Thank you.
So it takes nothing to support, even if that's going to follow them, you all. Whatever you give, you get back. So be a giver. Don't just be looking to get something. Give something. So, as always, you're great in the life you desire, you create. Oh, did you tell them where they can find you, Lauren?
So we're 404 Creators, 404 CREATORS. Follow us on Instagram. Check out some of our stuff. Feel free to DM me. I answer every DM, or at least I try to. If you got any questions about production, I'm not a gatekeeper. I like answering questions. I want to see people take the information that I have available and actually use it. Show me some of the things that you've seen in our productions and that you're implementing in your stuff. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at 404 CREATORS, 404 Creators on Instagram. We're on, what's the new site? The Instagram, was it real?
The Threads?
Yeah, Threads.
Okay.
Follow us on Threads. We're over there too. I haven't posted that much over there, but we're on Threads. We're definitely on Instagram. DM me if you got any questions, and yeah, that's it.
Well, y'all heard them. Go ahead and support. So definitely thank you. Also, make sure you all go and support Pop Up and Create. This is a studio where I am delighted to be a part of this community as well. So we're about community here. We're about supporting, networking, and just building and inspiring and uplifting. So please make sure you also doing the same thing in your own life, and have a blessed and great one. Toodles.
All right. Thank you.